hosts, the Bay Area Brawler, Skylar Greenberg, and your Colonial Champion, Sean McCarty. Welcome to the Court-Martail Podcast!
And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, to the Court-Martail Podcast, the podcast made by wrestling fans for wrestling fans. I am your Colonial Champion, Sean McCarty, on the mend, getting a little bit better each day from the respiratory and cold that I had that was quite noticeable on Wednesday's podcast. But as advertised, here we are on Friday to give my predictions for WrestleMania Night 1 and Night 2, or WrestleMania Saturday and Sunday. However you want to phrase it, personally, I don't care. I'm going to give you my breakdown of all of the matches, what I feel up to this point. But we also have some things that I want to address beforehand that have happened since that I really do find to be things of note that I would like to address. And I won't do any intros without any of the co-hosts around, because it is just me, your Colonial Champion, Sean McCarty, here today, just doing one more podcast before we get to the reviews of WrestleMania Saturday and WrestleMania Sunday, as those will round out 199 and, of course, the big 200. That is a huge milestone for the Court-Martail Podcast. I cannot believe we have gotten to this point, and I thank each and every one of you for sticking around the entire time. And for those of you who are the day oneers, and those of you who have hopped on from anywhere from me being on the reaction videos that I did all those whiles ago for the match of the week, and I've got some ideas of maybe doing some things in the future with the Court-Martail Podcast in that way, but maybe with a different spin now that I've got a little bit new technology up to my case. But speaking of new technology and giving people credit, before I go any further, I want to give a special shout out to Past Gen Wrestling and Past Gen Gaming on YouTube. As I have been in my Colonial Impact Wrestling side of things, I have been in a active partnership with PGW, and it has been quite fun working with him. And just recently, as recent as the past couple of days, he has had a couple of YouTube shorts where he creates SmackDown vs. Raw 2006 creator wrestlers, and he builds them from scratch and films it. And just recently, a couple of shorts he's done kind of speeding the whole process up and presenting it as a short have gotten him a couple million views. And I just wanted to say congratulations to the dude, because he puts in a lot of hard work over the past several years as someone who loves that specific genre of games, and particularly what he's able to do and how he's transformed and created a niche for himself that is unique and different from everywhere else. I really got to give that dude a lot of credit, and I know that it's a little bit of cross-pollination here, but I wanted to give Past Gen absolute due. Congratulations, man. You have absolutely earned that algorithm pull, and to get some serious attention for all the hard work that you've been putting in. But let's move on instead from somebody who is truly competent at what they do to somebody who has demonstrated for the past 6 years, going on 7, that he is the antithesis of competent. And of course, we're talking about our good friends at All Elite Wrestling. And I wasn't gonna comment on this. I didn't want to comment on AEW. I'm just so exhausted with AEW, but I've got somebody in my life who cannot stop marking out and sending me the marking out for AEW. And so I'm addressing this now, and I want to put an end to this, because as my rants went on last episode, I have had enough. But I was actually looking forward to MJF and Darby Allin. I was actually debating tuning in to watch that match. I really wanted to see it because of the history that they had, and I liked the idea that Darby Allin would be the one to dethrone MJF at a major pay-per-view. See, this show is already messing with me. At a major show with a big-time build-up, with the references to their past in AEW that you can use, you know, as far as having one of the best matches, I think, of the early AEW was MJF and Darby Allin. They put on a clinic. And I'm not opposed to Darby Allin being AEW champion, but I'm opposed to how and why and when they did this. I don't mind somebody catching MJF by surprise, like when Edge lost the World Heavyweight Championship, or lost the WWE Championship in the first 5 minutes of the Elimination Chamber. It would work out for him, obviously, but that kind of shock, title change, like knowing title change, I could get behind that. But wouldn't this have helped Darby so much more if there had been any sort of real build that could have gotten him to where people were really behind him more than this moment? And it's sad to me that it's let's give it away on free TV with big hype. And Tony is all about all of the previous lore and this massive continuity that he's created in his head. Why are you not using the continuity that you created? I don't understand. And I don't get how Tony can think that he's this mastermind when he is just not sensical when it's putting this stuff together. And again, I don't mind Darby being champion. I don't mind MJF losing the belt. But I mind, give these guys the clinic of a match that you two should have. This is the one time to do it for your name. But here's my problem with this. I know for a fact, and I have heard AEW folks, I will be polite. I have heard AEW listeners and watchers say that this will derail WrestleMania's momentum because everybody's going to be talking about this. That's why they did it, and that's exactly why I hate it. Because I thought Tony was not supposed to be the shock jock guy. I thought he was the long term, let's book this in, and I'm not opposed to a shock squash. I'm saying that like I did a couple minutes ago because I like the idea of it. As a matter of fact, I would have loved at WrestleMania if they had found a better way to go about everything to where Gunther and Lesnar could have had a match. You know, instead of being this career killer path, they could have had a match here where the shock finish of it was Brock just beat Gunther pretty quickly, which would piss everybody off and give Gunther a road to redemption and get him in a more of a babyface spot. But, you know, whatever they're going to do with that, they're going to do with that. We're going to get to WrestleMania pretty soon. But I don't understand. I mean, I get why you would think to do something major on a weekend that a competitor's doing something major. I get the reasoning behind that. But at some point, are you ever going to get past the idea that WWE lives rent-free in your brain? Like, whatever you do, it always has got to be, let's do something that's going to shock or coincide with WWE, and AEW fans saying that this is going to somehow take away from Mania. The only thing that's going to take away from Mania is WWE and TKO messing up WrestleMania. But Tony Khan ain't going to have a damn lick of influence on it one way or another, even if they do give away a shock win on free TV. You know, and the thing is that I hope that this leads to a main event match between Darby and Max at Double or Nothing that then they can maybe use some lore on, but they need more lore on it, but they got a moron on it. And that moron is Tony Khan. And it's another one of those epitome of the I don't know what I'm doing, even though I clearly think I do, which is why it also coincides with don't let the marks in with the 5 points that I made 10 years ago from the podcast from a couple of days ago. It's like Tony was listening and said, you know what? Great idea. I'm going to do exactly that. And I don't blame Tony for trying, but Tony just does not have the instincts upon execution. And it's just, it's what it is at this point. But I'm just done getting people to try and think that I'm somehow going to convert to AEW because they did some sort of shock move like this. No, I don't care about AEW. AEW is a lost cause. A sinking ship implies that the ship is not already underwater. And I don't know how much money it's making. I quite frankly don't care how much money it's making. Quite frankly, Tony Khan doesn't care how much money it's making. And yeah, they've had an uptick in viewership because WWE has gotten staler than stale. We're going to get to that in just a second. But AEW is not competition. And the timing of this is just cringy to me, quite frankly. The timing of this could have been saved for a major show. And Tony Khan, MJF kicked out, or at least did not have a finish, or was not pinned by an avalanche one-winged angel. And yet, he gets squashed by Darby Allin 4 days later. What fucking sense does this fucking make? It doesn't. And it boggles my mind how people are sitting here blowing Tony Khan like he is some genius. For who? Message board goblins. And that's the lightest way I could put it. I'm throwing y'all in the D&D manual as Tony Khan is king of the internet goblins. And that maybe that's the D&D we set up. You know, just as a payoff to what we were talking about a couple of days ago. Maybe that's the setup we do. We got to fight a whole bunch of goblins, internet goblins. And until we get to the head goblin, well, no, because there's the head goblin and then there's the real big bad evil guy who's the advisor of that guy, whose name is Dave Meltzer. And I have no problem knocking Dave at any random time, but I do feel like it's going to come out at some point. I don't know whether it's going to be now or whether it's going to be a couple of years from now, but it's going to come out at some point that Dave Meltzer has got a lot more influence on what goes on this television than people think. And I think that it's less Tony Khan doing what he wants to do and more what Tony Khan wants Dave Meltzer to tell him to do. I think he's booking for Dave. Not just for himself, but for Dave. And when Dave goes, "Hooray, allow me to ejaculate in your general direction," then Tony Khan gets a jiggle and then continues to do what he's doing. And so long as he's got the unlimited capital, he's going to be able to do that. I don't know what it's going to mean down the road with Warner Discovery when Paramount full-fledged takes over this thing. But it's going to be found out at some point just how much Dave's influence is. And my very first Court-Martail podcast that I did on this channel, I knocked Dave Meltzer pretty heavily, and I stand by all of those statements. And boy, little did we know how much worse his grip would get and how much more weight his influence would carry to some people. But let's move on to item number 2. I saw the Super Mario Galaxy movie today, and I enjoyed it. And I must say, I did a little short on the YNUX OG channel saying that it was a Super Luigi movie and that they've been messing with the promotion and they had been getting it wrong, and I tried to correct the people at the movie theater and they didn't think it was funny. I thought it was hilarious, but they didn't think it was funny. They just handed me my popcorn with one pathetic squirt of butter. This was the saddest butter squirt I have ever seen in my life. I have made ladies squirt more butter than this lady squirted butter on my popcorn. And I'm going to let you just sit with that visual for a second. As I must admit, I sat through, I didn't get the trailers that I hoped. There's the Minions movie that was not that good. Or at least it didn't look that good. It looked like it was a Clash of Kings or whatever, it was a Clash of Clans episode. I don't know, an ad. It looked like an ad because it was an ad. And then there was a DreamWorks project that I don't remember about sisters or best friends who might lose their brains. That one was also kind of confusing. And but then the movie itself was pretty good. Luigi is kind of the star of the movie. You know, he's the nicest to Bowser. You know, Bowser actually has some pretty good reasons for turning on Mario, Luigi, and Peach, to be fair. But Luigi was always nice to him. And Bowser never had a problem with Luigi. And he came to the rescue, and he summoned Mr. Game & Watch. Dude, the Smash references. And I'm sorry, spoiler alert, I already spoiled the alert. I have spoiled the alert. Spoiled it, spoiled it, spoiled it, spoiled it, spoiled it. But there are a lot of Smash references in this movie. And that's the only one I'm going to spoil that Nintendo didn't already spoil themselves. But... boy, here's my summation of this movie. I didn't know Nintendo wanted to do a Star Wars, but this was the most A New Hope Nintendo movie I have ever seen. Actually, that's not true. I take it back. It's more like The Force Awakens because the actual nipple gun to destroy the universe and destroy the planets was on the planet. And then, spoilers again. And then Peach and Rosalina turned the planet into Yavin 4, which I thought was kind of ironic, and that's not the only Star Wars reference in the whole thing. It was, yeah, there's a lot. Star Fox did the Kessel Run in under 12 parsecs, but anyway, now that I have completely spoiled that movie, I have to say, here's the thing though, it felt choppy. And what I mean by that is that, yeah, it was like a 99-minute video or movie, and it moved along, but I feel like there was character depth moments that were just missing. You know, I felt like some of those things that tend to tug at your heartstrings didn't quite get to them. And I'm not saying that they didn't try. I'm saying that it felt like there were parts where it felt like they just needed to move on, so they just skipped something. So it felt like there were things that were just skipped. And I hardly ever say this about movies because I always say they could go less time. But man, this movie could have used like 15 more minutes of character depth. But here's another problem though. It's been mentioned on the Super Jam Session V2 channel. Editor, throw in the promotional advertisement right here.
Super Jam Session.
And if you go on that channel, you will have seen the review of the Mario movie and the Sonic 1 and 2, and I think 3, even though they didn't invite me for Sonic 3, even though I've watched that movie 6 times now. So I bet I could say more of the quotes than they can. Ha 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 ha, the joke's on you, my brethren. But anyway, stay tuned, and Super Jam Session V2 might have a more in-depth review of this, and perhaps Sonic 4 when it comes out next year. But that's where we do a lot of the movie talk, but I wanted to cross-pollinate a little and say, I enjoyed the movie. Mario doesn't have as much storyline depth as Sonic lore does. So they're doing their best with what they can. All the ladies made their own comebacks, basically. Although Peach, they're definitely pushing Peach pretty hard. And, of course, the spoiler at the very end of the movie, the post-credit scene, has my second favorite character in the movie and in the franchise. And the reason this particular person is my second favorite is that was gooning material back when I was a prepubescent child, so I got a special place in my heart for the post-credit scene. And not just in my heart, but now I'm going to take care of the lump in my throat, and maybe another lump, and then we're going to talk about WrestleMania.
Please stand by.
All right, I have had a drink of water, and I feel great. Which means it's now time to talk about WrestleMania. Which is probably going to give me bad indigestion, but I do have all of the things I need in order to have myself a good time. I have 1.5 speed, I have the skip button, and I have plenty of that sweet, sweet Gren. And now let's talk about the overall vibes heading into this WrestleMania. This WrestleMania is cursed. This is Cursemania. It was WrestleMania 42, and it's not just because Danhausen is there, and you have to imagine he's going to get involved somewhere with something for some reason. And I'm not sure where, but it's going to happen, without a doubt. It's going to happen. But we've got 2 nights. We've got WrestleMania Saturday and Sunday, but both of these shows have sold not very well. And it's partly incompetency, I think, on TKO's part to go, hey, we didn't sell a lot of tickets here the last time. Let's go back there as if that's going to help. But let's also jack up the prices by like 6,000% and make sure that we price everybody who possibly could come to this out of it for the sake of the market. And it is proven that it is not going very well, namely because TKO has not been able to resist sticking their nose where it doesn't belong. And I thought Triple H's nose was pretty big. TKO's beak is like a plague doctor, as they are just beaking it everywhere. And it's getting to the point where it's CM Punk had one of the best babyface lines ever by just saying lower the ticket prices. But there's been some dissension between TKO and WWE that has led to this, especially when Pat McAfee got involved in the world title match, which we're going to get to. And then Cody Rhodes cut a very smart mark promo, but he got a lot off his chest, but it confused a lot of the people there. But then Punk did a much better job weaving it in and out and telling the truth and being really genuinely upset while also promoting his match with Roman Reigns. But it's not just been that that's ruined the vibes. It's been the overall attitude of just TKO as a whole. I think all of the good faith that WWE built up is completely gone. I mentioned it a couple of days ago. This is the least passionate I've ever been about not just WWE, but pro wrestling as a whole. I kind of feel like we have now gone in a direction that there's just no coming back from in all facets. So I just don't see a reality where in 10 years time, I'm still going to be watching wrestling anymore. Just given where, even just this crop of wrestlers, there's good ones, there's bad ones, but I don't trust the leadership to carry it off. And what I'm about to say, I don't really blame much of the talent in this regard, because it's not really their fault. And we said that with Vince, and I'm saying it now. The show's format is killing the vibes. It's killing this program by long segment after long segment after long segment, ads after ads after ads. I can only imagine how long these two nights combined are going to be to watch. It's why I'm using 1.5 speed. And I'm not negotiating it, because it's one of those things where I'm going to need to get this along and get this moving, because all the entrances, especially at WrestleMania, will be 12 minutes long, 15 minutes long. You think that Randy Orton, I almost guarantee you that the match between Orton and Cody is going to go less time than the entrances will. And if you include Pat McAfee with his own, I'm not sure whether he's coming with Randy or not, but those are going to take forever. Roman Reigns and CM Punk's entrances are going to take forever. There could be ads in between those entrances. Like a full-blown commercial break in between those entrances. Not that I'm telling them to do that. Please don't. Because there's going to be plenty of ads everywhere and a bunch of fans and logos just screaming, I'm in the drumstick section, because the intellectual capacity of a drumstick. And we're going to be force-fed all these ads. I heard Nick Khan double down on going to Saudi Arabia next year, so that's a choice. And with Saudi Mania looming, the decisions that these money-grabbing, I thought that those were goblins with Tony Khan, but the internet goblins are definitely there. WWE, I'm not even sure what class of villain I would put them in terms of D&D classes are concerned, but the way that they are rogues for sure. They are just grabbing as much money as they can, but the problem is TKO is going, we're not getting enough money because the show's so boring, and part of it is that they've got Pat McAfee to Gary and go shit all over the whole program because he doesn't know how to blur in and out between shoot and kayfabe, so he just shat all over everything. And Pat McAfee, to me, I felt this a long time about Pat. And kind of like Logan Paul, I just leave it alone for the sake of the entertainment of the wrestling, because Logan Paul is very good at the wrestling aspects of this. But with the kind of the shoot stuff that Pat's been doing lately, it's one thing for him to be put into the main event, which was bad enough. It's worse when you realize that all Pat McAfee is a brand. His logo, his slogan is for the brand. That's because he is a walking advertisement. He is a personification of just ad. He is just an ad. They have shoehorned a human ad into the main event of WrestleMania Saturday. Let's get to it. Let's get into this. We'll start with the first hour, which is on ESPN2. I guess to entice people to come and watch the rest of the show on ESPN, the paid program, for $30 a month. I will be doing neither, thank you very much. I will be catching this show outside. How about that? And we start out with a 6-man tag, and I'm going to skip this one. It is LA Knight and the Usos versus The Vision, Austin Theory, Logan Paul, and I Show Speed. Let's talk about the celebrity bombardment at this show. Because TKO and WWE have been panicking because they got a whole mess of people that got injured. So then they had to scramble and re-rack the card. So they pushed Orton and Cody before it was ready. And they did that, and they didn't use any of their history to set this up because they just had to shoehorn all of these other celebs into this factor and into this equation. Because now, I was mentioning this to Joshua and Skylar in the chat, and I'm going to bring it up here. What they need to do, what TKO needs to do, is do what boxing did and have a celebrity wrestling show separate from WWE and let WWE do their stuff with their stars and get their stars over and find better ways to do that are a little bit more exciting and not just dragging stuff out for eternity's sake. But they need to put all of these people in and just have celebrities box, have that draw the buckets of money that it will draw. I'm not saying it won't. I'm not saying a Jelly Roll Pat McAfee match won't draw a lot of money for people who don't give a fuck about pro wrestling but want to see two celebrities do a tussle. And that'll be great, and it'll draw, and TKO can make a ton of money from that, and then they can leave WWE to do what WWE does and let them rake in the money that they're going to rake in, if they're allowed to. But this desperation of shoehorning all these celebrities in, it just devalues all of the lifelong wrestlers, especially when they look good at this. When this whole show is celebrities who are doing it better than the wrestlers, why the fuck would anyone join professional wrestling as a career when you can just be famous somehow else and do it just as well as everybody else? And this is something that is really bothering me. It's either all okay or none of it's okay. And in this situation, because it's just overkill. And I know that WrestleMania was made and interwoven in celebrity involvement. I get that. But it wasn't like, well, okay, Mr. T was in the main event. But so I guess that, but there, you know how much controversy that caused to do that? That the fact that he was in the main event of that situation. But again, he was protected in that situation where there were a ton of other wrestlers actually doing the work there. And it wasn't like all of the other celebrities interfered at all of the other matches and it was all this. We didn't have this many celebrities competing on this show where it's hard for wrestlers to get spots on cards. And I mentioned it back on the Wednesday show where in the wrestling business, athleticism is at an all-time high and charisma is at an all-time low. And my concern is that they're going to look for that charisma elsewhere more frequently, the way that they did here. And I'm skipping this match, not because I Show Speed's in it, not because the Vision is overall a flop in my opinion, but I am not going to subjugate myself to backslap tags up the ass by the Usos, nonstop yeets, and then to watch LA Knight get pinned by I Show Speed. Fuck that. Anyone who knows anything about what I have felt about LA Knight for years and years and years know that I love the dude, and he's done himself no favors lately, but even still, you can feel it. You can feel it. They are Zack Rydering the fuck out of this dude. And they're not going to stop until people stop chanting for LA Knight. And I am now on the free Eli Drake train. Get him the fuck out of here. Put him out to TNA. If you're going to bury him, let him go. Just let him go and let him shine and be who he was before, which might include cutting a few promos on your behalf, and let him go and cut him loose. Because seeing him lose to iShow Speed is just, it ain't gonna work for me, brother. And it's another one of those guys where I've just, to some degree, I will never forgive WWE for how right I was at Money in the Bank last year. I will not stop saying it. I will not stop running that victory lap, because I called it then that when he did not win that briefcase, that they were done with him. And boy, have they been done with him. This is going to open up. It's going to be a spot fest. It's going to be super kicks. It's going to be a BFT to Logan Paul, or some Austin Theory. Logan Paul's going to hit him, and then iShow Speed's going to do something and win this matchup. And I'm not doing it. So that's my prediction. Have fun watching it. For the people who like that kind of thing, that's the kind of thing those people like. I don't mean to quote other podcasts, but it's the way it is. No thanks. Up next is Drew McIntyre versus Jacob Fatu. And God, I feel for Drew McIntyre, but I will say this. How much worse would it have been if Drew McIntyre had this belt and was facing Randy Orton's and they shoehorned Pat McAfee into this? It almost makes it where I think the fact that Drew McIntyre is nowhere near that feud ultimately was a blessing in disguise. So I'm not that upset that Drew and Jacob are competing this early. I'm sad that Drew's title reign ended the way it ended, knowing that it was going to be that way. But this match is going to be good. You know, I hope that they don't over-gimmick it. I don't think they're going to. I mean, it's an unsanctioned match that they're having in the first hour, which is also kind of strange, but that's the way that they've built this. But I don't know whether I doubt they're going to do juice in this match, so I don't know how unsanctioned we're going to get, and it might just be let's all play with the toys until I'm assuming Jacob Fatu's going to win this. Because Jacob Fatu's the one they definitely want to push as a more prominent main event star. Not to say that Drew McIntyre isn't one, but I think that Jacob needs this more than Drew. And I feel for Drew because Drew kind of needs this win as well, but at this point, I don't know how much else you're going to get out of Drew. And I don't mean that because Drew isn't spectacular, but I get the impression that he needs something different. Now, I don't know whether that necessarily means that he changes gimmick. I don't know whether that necessarily means that he just goes away for a while. And I mean a while, not like a couple of weeks, but a actual while. Not I quit, but let me show up on every TV afterwards. You know, but Drew is, I think, at a point where the goals that we felt he was robbed of by the pandemic, he's now achieved in a way that he's been very prominently and well understandably featured over the past couple of years. But I think right now they could take the foot off the gas with Drew and let him go away for a little while and then come back and do something in a meaningful program, maybe even as a babyface, depending on whether Orton is still, you know, I assume Orton's winning this belt, whether Orton is still champion, or I don't know. I don't know, but I think that Jacob's got to win this and Drew could use some time off, and I'm hoping that achieves this end, but who knows with WWE. I don't trust the booking to do anything anymore, so who the fuck knows? And then we move on to the non-pre-show main show, part of the main show, which is a WWE Women's Tag Team Championship Fatal 4-Way match. It is Alexa Bliss and Charlotte versus Lash Legend and Nia Jax versus Lyra Valkyria and Bayley versus, who's that? Is that Dembellas? I think it's Dembellas. I'm looking at the graphic from my laptop from a distance, and my glasses are not as sharp as they used to be. And I'm going to be honest with you, I really wanted to skip this. I really did. Because I'm not going to ascribe, by the way, I set up an Excel sheet for myself, Josh Ageddon, and the Bay Area Brawler, Skylar Greenberg, for all of us to put in who's going to watch what, Because I'm not going to limit ourselves to one skip. If we refuse to watch something, we refuse to watch something. And there's going to be a couple of things that I skip on this show. And I was going to skip this, but I'm skipping something else that I haven't brought up yet. And I feel like I need to compensate by watching this. I might get a good giggle out of something silly that happens. Lyra Valkyria is always apt for a wardrobe malfunction, so there's some visibility in that. Nia Jax is bound to crush somebody or not hit anybody. You know, she's either gonna mow over somebody or do a clothesline that is so far away from the opponent that's like on the other side of the ring. And you never know what the Bellas will or will not be able to conjure up in the category of stupid wrestling visuals. So there might be some giggles and guffaws to be had in this women's Fatal 4-Way tag team match. So I'm going to suffer through that one for the sake of entertainment. And it might make me laugh. And I'm okay with it being making laugh me by them, the WWE. But if you thought that was all for the women, who knew? We got 2 more women's matches on this card. We got AJ Lee versus Becky Lynch for the Women's Intercontinental Championship match. And I really think that this matchup, they had a good one when they competed before. I'm sure it's going to be fine now. This is going to be another contest between Becky and Seth as to who has the most ridiculous outfit. So be prepared for the upcoming edition of What the Fuck is Becky Lynch and or Seth Rollins wearing. And I firmly believe that this match is probably going to go to Becky because I can't imagine they're going to finish this feud like this. I think they're going to have some sort of feud with weapons because WWE cannot help themselves. Maybe a ladder match between these two I would enjoy. A singles ladder match, which is the only ladder match I like, is a singles ladder match, a one-on-one between 2 ladies. But I do think that Becky's going to win this because I don't see what else Becky's going to do if she's not around this Intercontinental title. And AJ Lee, it's not that I don't believe that she can carry the Intercontinental title to level of prominence, but I don't know unless Becky's taking some time off herself, which I doubt she is, but both of these ladies need to kind of wrap this up, but I don't think this is the end of the feud. I think they're going to trade this belt a couple of times so they can keep putting it on pay-per-views. So I'm going to say that Becky's going to win that. And if Becky taps to AJ again, I mean, then that's it. Then there's no more feud, and then AJ moves on to whatever she's going to do next. But I'm not necessarily sure that AJ Lee is going to be back full-time in the way that we think, considering how often that she's been there for the time that she's been there. So who knows? Then we get Seth Rollins versus Gunther in the Why Are We Fighting matchup, where their last promo was, I'll be honest, why are we fighting? And it's all based on Paul Heyman. And Gunther's supposed to be a hired Gunther against Seth Rollins. And it's gonna be a spectacular matchup. I have no doubt about that. But this is kind of a perfect example of let's panic button everything on the fly the way that they have. And again, it's probably gonna be the best technical match of the entire weekend, knowing these two. But it just feels out of place, especially considering that, at least Becky and AJ has some history to it. At least Drew McIntyre and Fatu has some history to it. They've been trying to build the Usos and the Vision and ISO Speed. And why is Jey Uso fighting other YouTubers? Was that a shoot or not? It sure looked like a work to me, but was Jey drunk? It wouldn't surprise me. And hey, maybe if Jey Uso has gotten himself into trouble like he always does, maybe that means LA Knight won't get pinned by ISO Speed, but I know I'm kidding myself. I know I'm fucking kidding myself. There's no way. There's no way. There's no way. Everything I like is hurting. Anyway, so we move on. I don't know who they're going to have win this. Because Seth kind of needs to come back and win against Gunther, but Gunther really can't lose to Seth right now unless Seth's gonna try to retire soon. Which, I don't know how much the people would actually hate. I know that might sound controversial, but in the same way that I mean this with Drew, I don't know how much more you're going to get out of Seth Rollins. Not that not his matches. I'm, again, not talking about his work, because Drew's work is great and Seth's work is great. I'm not trying to knock these two workers, but right now, I think Seth could use a prolonged break too and have him come back. And I know he just came back, but I think ultimately what's going to happen here is that Seth might actually have Gunther beat and Braun Breaker comes in to interfere in some way to set that up if Braun Breaker is healthy to do that. If this ends up being just a pure finish, then I'm assuming that Gunther's going to choke Rollins out. And Gunther will keep continuing on with his dominance run, I think ultimately leading up to him and Brock, which is what they've been teasing, which I'm all game for. I'm totally game for it. It's an interesting matchup because it's one of those let's patch shit together matches that is really just plaguing this WrestleMania as a whole. And it's a big part of the reason why tickets aren't selling. Well, that and the prices. But anywho, then we've got Liv Morgan and Stephanie Vaquer for the Women's World Championship match. And I must admit, this is probably the women's match of the entire weekend that I could care about at all. As shocking as that sounds, and a large part of that is Liv Morgan, and I love how sadistic and depraved she looked in this last episode of Raw. When Stephanie Vaquer gave her a giant softball-sized knot on her face, as well as not Raquel Rodriguez, as well as Roxanne Perez. As these two, all this build has been is kind of just beating the piss out of each other, but I have not been upset about it. So I'm actually rather intrigued to see what this match is. It's kind of kept it simple, and for a WrestleMania that's either had no build or so much overcomplicated nonsense build, just having something that is fighting and more fighting is fine with me. I'm happy to see how this match goes. It's probably going to go longer than I want, but that's probably going to be the show entirely, so it's what it is. And then, Cody and Orton with Pat McAfee and undoubtedly Jelly Roll, because they've shoehorned him into this as well. And this sucks. This just sucks, and it pains me to say this. I'm skipping this main event. I'm finishing WrestleMania Saturday early. I'm going to bed early because I am not going to subjugate myself to the epitome of everything that is wrong with WWE and TKO as it stands. And if this match goes south, and if the fans shit all over this, I could firmly see this being what cost Triple H's job, and him being replaced by The Rock or Vince or Brian Gewirtz or somebody worse that we don't know about. And the Pat being here for the reasons that he's here, and Jelly Roll being involved for the reasons he's being involved, and the fact that Cody and Orton didn't need any of that. All they needed was their prior history. That's it. That's all they needed was their prior history. They didn't need all of this backstage goo-god that they're filming for Unreal so they can win an Emmy, which is all that TKO fucking cares about right now. And the fact that they took a story that wrote itself and ruined it. I wanted to say, they have ruined Cody and Orton. They've ruined Cody. They completely de-pushed him, even though he's champion. Orton's going to get 15. Whether he keeps it very long or not is almost irrelevant. And I would imagine maybe somebody else is going to win that belt very quickly thereafter to then make the Orton and Jelly Roll and Cody and McAfee tag team match happen at Backlash. And I just don't care about that. It's watching Jelly Roll move like King Kong Bundy and work like Big Show is just the worst. And Pat McAfee just he's just a brand name. He is TKO's greed manifested. And Cody and Randy are just sitting there with their thumbs up their asses going, it didn't have to be like this at all. It's why they were bumped to night 1. This should have been a night 2 main event, but they gummed all this up so badly that it doesn't even feel like this should be opening up a show. This should be where the WWE title used to be, opening up a show. And the sad thing is they don't have a main event or a match of main event caliber anywhere else on this show either. Which is the hard thing because it has no better place to go than on Last. But I'm not doing it. I'm not subjugating myself to it. What do I think's going to happen? I think Jelly Roll's going to try and get involved and maybe distract Pat, but it's not going to be enough. And maybe Jelly Roll turns heel on Cody. I don't know. But Orton's winning this match. He's winning 15. The crowd's going to still be happy and they're still going to chant for Randy Orton, but all the heels aren't heels. The baby faces aren't baby faces. You know, the people have been cheering Randy as he's been murdering people. I'm hoping that Orton punts Cody and Cody takes some time off too. You know, we just need a break from all of this. And that break is going to be me out of protest not watching this main event. And there is nothing that they can do to reel me back into that. If Ted Jr. shows up, great. I don't care. I never really cared for Ted Jr. myself. I know he's one of Josh Again's pet projects, but I've never been a fan of his. This could have been so much more. They ruined it for me, and I just say no thank you. I'll be busy watching Saturday Night Hype on Colonial Impact Wrestling. And let's move on to night 2 as we get some more interesting matchups on this show. And we start with the first hour, which is going to be on regular ESPN to showcase that it is a more important show than night 1 on WrestleMania Sunday. And it starts with an Intercontinental Championship 6-man ladder match. Remember how I said that I only care for singles matches when it comes to ladder matches? The reason being is you can tell a lot more story with a singles ladder match than you can with a let's do as many fun, cool spots as we can involving 3 luchadors and other small, very athletic human beings. And Rusev, who is there. And I just don't give a fuck. This is not my kind of wrestling. I'm just over these spot matches. And listen, are all the spots going to get pops? Yeah. Is stuff going to look brutal? Yeah. Is Josh again going to clap his hands at excitement? Of course he is. And good. Enjoy yourselves. It's not for me. And it's not because I don't like fun. It's that isn't fun for me. It's not what I consider fun in wrestling. And it's not that I can't get involved in a spot fest, but no Titus O'Neil, no Sean Watch. It really comes down to that. And I'm sure whoever wins is going to be a good champion for however long they have it, for as much as people care about that title right now. I'm imagining Penta's going to retain, but Javon Evans might also become the youngest champion in WWE history, or the youngest Intercontinental champion in WWE history. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. And, you know, again, these aren't what they used to be. They're just not what they used to be, and that's the only way I can put it. We've just seen them all. We've seen them all, and it's just interchangeable people, and I'm sure there's going to be some cool stuff. Please, for the love of God, be careful, Ray. But I'm sure Josh again will recap that to great effect on episode 200 of the Court-Martail podcast. So stay tuned for that review. For those of you who like that kind of match, you will get coverage of it. Just not from me. But what you will see me watching is Brock Lesnar and Obafemi. And I am very intrigued about this match. This is one of the ones I'm real excited for. Everything in me. Oh, and I said who's going to win that. I think it's going to, just for the predictions of the previous winner of the previous match, I think Penta's going to retain, but it also could go to Javon Evans as well, because I think they could do that. But I doubt any of the other ones are going to get any sort of reaction that's going to matter, especially because AAA is still very much a factor in what they're doing with that belt right now. So we'll see what happens. But Brock Lesnar and Obafemi, they've had Obafemi get the better of Brock Lesnar every single time they've been in the ring with each other. And that's what scares me. Logic would purvey Femi beats Lesnar pretty convincingly. This is like the shock squash match where Oba just dominates Brock. I am terrified they're going to do the exact opposite. Not like Kofi Kingston burial bad, but that Brock Lesnar's going to be more than Obafemi can handle for the sake of building up to another matchup. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't do that, but I don't know if I really think Lesnar ought to win this match. And how long is he going to go for? You know, we don't know how long Brock Lesnar's got left where he's going to want to do this. But can he draw another big card with Obafemi? I'm sure he could. You know, but I'm just worried of just how one-dimensional the build to this has been. This has been one of the few builds that I've really gotten behind and enjoyed. This one makes me nervous. And I don't necessarily think that Lesnar winning is the wrong choice, but boy, what would it mean for Oba to win it? I don't know. It's hard for me to gauge. It's weird that it's going on this early on the card, considering the middle chunk of this card. But I guess let's get to that, as we've got Sami Zayn and Trick Williams going one-on-one for the United States Championship. And by the way, I think Brock is going to win, but I just don't want it to be a squash. Either give us a good match and Lesnar win, or let Oba actually ride this wave. As Zayn and Trick, they're teasing, or at least it seems like they've been teasing a double turn with Sami and Trick, and I think it's kind of getting to that point. I want to see a babyface Trick Williams actually do some more, because I really like Trick in what I've seen of him of late. And Sami, I don't know how else to put this. You know, Sami's whole thing is like he wants to win the world title and he wants to be on the top. Has Sami not been taken and viewed and used as something of a top individual for a while? They put him in a lot of prominent positions, have they, with Sami Zayn? And I'm not saying that they shouldn't, but I think Sami needs a different dimension to him as well. I think they're going to do something of a double turn here. I will not forget that Little Yachty is probably going to get involved in that, which I don't want, but it's going to happen. And he's actually not been the worst as far as celebrity involvement is concerned, as far as the buildup of this goes. But I really want this to be kind of the dark horse good match of the night, as these two could put on a pretty good matchup. But I do like Trick. I think Sami's going to retain, but I don't think it's going to be clean. And if it is just Sami wins clean, maybe that'll actually give him more heat than him actually cheating. But I don't know. I think Sami needs to cheat or Trick needs to win. Then we get to Jade Cargill and Rhea Ripley. And this match fascinates me because the baddies are useless. B-Fab and is it Mia Yim? I forget who it is that they've put with Jade Cargill, but they're just useless. They're just the fact that they're even near Jade is just, and Jade is. This is a hard one because Rhea Ripley's a star, but I think people are also burnt out. But she needs this so badly. But Jade, I don't think she can really afford to lose it right now unless they're just done with her, which I don't think they are. I don't think they're done with Jade. I think they want to try it. But if they were going to have Jade do this, why not put some good quality talent around her instead of fucking B-Fab? And if Mia Yim is destined to just be a flunky her entire WWE career, at least she can work a little bit. But B-Fab? Fuck. And Rhea, they had all, Io Sky and all those people, attacked. And so now it's just Rhea Ripley and Jade. And I want Rhea to win this. I think Rhea should win this. But I don't think she's going to win this because I don't think they're done with Jade Cargill. And I wish they would be. And then we get Demon Balor versus Dominic Mysterio. Dominic Guerrero from NWL fame. As Demon Balor, who's going to come out with the dude wipes on his chest. And this match is probably going to be really, really, really good. And this match is probably going to be another sleeper rocking match. Like, this match is going to slap. Because I've really grown on Yabu boy Finn Balor recently. You know, not just because he does the Yabu, but I'm interested to see what they do with this. And Dominic Mysterio is so good. And I would love to see Dominic Mysterio win a Money in the Bank and ultimately, like, win the WWE. Or I think he's going to be a world's champion pretty soon. Before too long, Dominic Mysterio is going to be either a World Heavyweight or WWE champion. But just not at this moment. But at some point he will. You mark my words, someday he will. But this match is going to be very good. And Balor and Mysterio, I think this has been a long time coming for those two. I think people can get behind babyface Balor right now. And they love Boo and Dom. So that I'm going to enjoy that. And I think Finn Balor is going to win it. I think they're not going to bury the demon in his return since losing to Edge at WrestleMania 39. I think they're going to give that to Finn. Or at least they should. And if they don't, then he needs to go just like LA Knight does. Because he deserves better than that. And then our main event, CM Punk versus Roman Reigns. Now, I heard somebody say that there's whispers that The Rock's going to interfere with this because of what Punk said on that pipe bomb. And please, WWE, please, I am begging you, keep this between Punk and Reigns. Please, please keep this between those two. Don't get The Rock involved. If you're going to ruin one night of WrestleMania in the main event, don't ruin the second. Keep this pure. This has been the best built thing you've got is Punk and Reigns. And I think that Roman Reigns is going to win, but it's going to be a hell of a matchup. I think this is a hell of a main event for Punk. And this is the main event match that CM Punk really deserves, is this. And I don't know if he's going to get another one. This might be it for Punk, but you know what? I'm glad he's getting it. He's earned it. So is Roman Reigns. And I'm ready for this. I'm ready for this match. This is probably the best hyped up main event since, Punk since Reigns and Cody at WrestleMania 40. They have really done a good job getting all of this built and setting the stage for this. Although then again, they did a good job in the hype leading up to John Cena and Cody. They just fucked that finish up badly. But just give me the match. All you need is the match between Punk and Reigns. I am ready for it. They've talked me into it. Now it's not going to be wrestling's greatest technical masterpiece, but it's going to be a hell of a matchup. And I think Roman Reigns is going to win the belt, but I don't know what's going to happen with that belt after that, because Roman Reigns is going to end up leaving to do a lot of promotional work for Akuma for the Street Fighter movie that's coming out. So he's not going to be around very often to have that belt defended. And it's not like Punk couldn't use a pinfall victory over Roman Reigns. But I don't know what's next for CM Punk either. He's kind of gone through all the people that he would need to, unless he's going to get into a feud with Brock. And that ends up being something. I don't know what they're going to end up doing with Punk. So there's a lot of interesting factors going into this main event and where they go from here, which makes me not really sure where they're going to take this World Heavyweight Championship. And I must admit, that still keeps me excited. Not knowing who's going to win this main event. If there's any good thing to take away from what has happened to WWE leading up into this WrestleMania, is that I don't know who's going to win their main event. And that's really what I'm in it for. And then once we see this show, we're going to take another deep evaluation. And oh dear God, by the way, I don't want to bring it into existence, but if Vince McMahon is going to get involved, this is where I think it's going to be. But I more think that Vince is going to show up after WrestleMania, maybe on the Raw after WrestleMania, if he's showing up, which I don't think he will, because the stock of WWE is at $195 a share with a $15 billion market cap. I don't think they're going to jeopardize the shareholders by having Vince McMahon show up on TV. But a lot of people are calling that an inevitability now. It's like everybody's putting the whispers that Vince is going to end up coming back. It's made the media rounds. It's been talked about by Triple H, and that has given it enough cause. He's been mentioned constantly on WWE TV with CM Punk, and I hope that this is not where it shows up, because that would be a rude awakening for CM Punk to be involved in an angle with Vince McMahon. But that's why I think it's going to end up being on the Raw afterwards. But I really do. I'm worried. I'm worried that Vince is going to come back. Now, if that happens, we can talk about the moral ramifications and what that means for the future of the podcast and what we do to review wrestling after that, which is why I've been kind of starting in my check-in series. And we're going to do a little bit more of that after WrestleMania. But let's see how they do this, because the last time a WrestleMania build was this piss poor, it was WrestleMania 31, and that show ended up being really fucking good. But a lot of the shows ending with 2 in WrestleMania history aren't very good. WrestleMania 2 was mostly ass. WrestleMania 12 had an Iron Man match with no pinfalls in it, and then was main evented by Sid and The Undertaker? Or no, I'm sorry, that was the year afterwards. But WrestleMania 12, even though that Iron Man match was okay, it was not that good of a WrestleMania. And yes, that is the one that featured the Ultimate Warrior beating Triple H in like 20 seconds and no selling a pedigree. That was that WrestleMania. WrestleMania 22 was good. That's the only exception I'm going to take to this one, because that show had some pretty quality matchups to it. WrestleMania 32 was bad. And here comes WrestleMania 42, which could be an all-time shocker of a good show or good shows, or an all-time stinker of a shows that could have long-term ramifications for the wrestling business as a whole. But the only way we're going to know is to actually see it happen. And now I think we've taken up too much time. So it is time to go to our first commercial break. Thank you for indulging this overindulgence of podcasts in this close concentration. And we will see you next week for a review of WrestleMania 42 Saturday for episode 199 and episode 200 for WrestleMania Sunday. But until then, we'll be right back right after this.